We are live. Welcome back to the Vol Talk podcast. Today, we are once again joined by special guest Dakota. Blake cannot make this show, so Dakota is again filling in. And dude, it's here. It's time. Football time in Tennessee. Syracuse versus Tennessee, game number one. How are you feeling about week one, man?
I am excited. I appreciate you having me on. Unfortunate Blake can't be here. Quick note: I'm a little under the weather, so just noting that for fans, I will have a cough drop in for this whole thing. But I'm excited, man. We did that preview show on Sunday together, which was an absolute blast. Probably the most fun I've had in a while. It was a gauntlet, 3 hours. Maybe some appreciation for those that do this for a living. But probably the most fun I've had in a minute with you and Blake going through the full season prediction. But now I'm excited, man. I've started diving into looking at Syracuse a bit, which we'll break down, and I'm getting more excited, and I'm just ready for football, man. It's football time in Tennessee, like you said.
It's here. Last time we opened against Syracuse was 2001. We annihilated them in that game. But the second to last time was 1998. And we all know what that year means. National championship for Tennessee, undefeated season, incredible year, of course. That game was fantastic, by the way, Dakota. Donovan McNabb at starting quarterback for Syracuse. We had to go on a game-winning drive, dude, with like a minute, 30 seconds left to kick the game-winning field goal as time expired. Fantastic game. So hopefully this one's not that stressful because we're 14-point favorites in this game. So let's hope not. But yeah, today we're basically just going to go over the offense versus the defense for both teams, how they match up, and then Dakota and I will give our predictions at the end of the show. So pretty short show tonight, and that's typically how these preview shows will go. But before we get into it, I want to thank everyone for the support we've got recently on the channel. Like Dakota said, we did a 3-hour live stream previewing the entire season last Sunday. Incredible show. Probably our favorite show in Vol Talk history. People hung around for like the whole 3 hours, dude. It was unreal. So thank you all for the support. And yeah, liking and subscribing really helps us grow our channel and kind of motivates us to keep doing this. So if y'all don't mind to like and sub, and check us out on Spotify as well. Like Blake's been saying, Spotify's been growing a ton. We upload all of our full-length podcasts onto Spotify. So with that being said, let's jump into it, man. First, we're going to start with our offense versus the Syracuse defense. A lot of question marks on offense, Dakota. We kind of talked about that in the preview. Just a lot of new guys starting, a lot of new faces. So how do you feel about our offense matching up against this Syracuse defense?
Yeah, I think it's a battle of a lot of unknowns. Our offense, we covered on Sunday, it's a lot of new faces. We lost a lot of the production from last year. And some of that may be a good thing, right? I think a lot of us are optimistic that Nico leaving and Joey Aguilar will be a blessing in disguise and that the offense will be more explosive with him at the helm. And I think this defense that Syracuse has is a good opportunity to showcase that. It's a experienced in terms of like class level, but not in terms of playing. So they have like 8 seniors who are projected to start on this defense, but most of them have not played a ton. The one thing I will say that is really interesting is Syracuse's head coach, Fran Brown. He was the DB coach at Georgia before he took this job last year. In his one season at Syracuse, they went 10-3, which is pretty impressive. So he has the history at coaching the secondary. And he kind of helped mold like Kamari Lassiter and Kelly Ringo, who are some Georgia guys that went to get drafted relatively high. And he did bring in a Georgia corner, a former 4-star, who it looks like is going to be starting. So I think the most interesting part for me will be seeing the pass game. I feel pretty confident. This defensive front, we were just chatting on this before we live, like they're not very intimidating. If there's a game for our offensive line to start clicking, it's this one, this early. So I feel pretty good about that. I think the thing I'm going to focus on the most is our passing game against the secondary, and that being kind of Fran's, as a coach, his expertise.
Yeah, those are two interesting matchups. Like you pointed out, Fran seems to be really good at bringing in specifically secondary talent, and that probably is due to his background, right? Being a cornerback coach at Georgia, also starting a true freshman at cornerback, 4-star prospect that they brought in this year. And then, as you alluded to, they also brought in the 4-star transfer from Georgia. So their secondary is very inexperienced, but high upside, I would say, as far as, just blue chip talent is concerned. But like you said, it is interesting because they do have an experienced defensive line, but just looking at their production, they don't seem to be very good. And, maybe that's final last words, but they don't seem to be that great on the defensive line. And one of our biggest question marks with our offensive line this season, even though we all believe it's going to be better than last year, it's still a group with very little continuity, or basically none.
Mhm.
No continuity starting together, especially throughout an entire season. So that's going to be interesting, And like you said, it could be a good game for this offensive line to get their feet wet in the season and hopefully play well, man. That's what we're hoping. It's interesting because a Vol reporter this week interviewed Heupel, and he's very confident this offensive line is going to be a lot better this year, which is interesting to me. I don't know if you can really see offensive line played though, Dakota, until you're in the game,
Mhm.
right, and see how they're actually going to play in the game. And hopefully this Syracuse defensive line is a good matchup, like you said, experienced but not great. And it's another good point you make about our receiving core. Like, how can our receivers, like, we need one of these guys to break out, right? We talked about this on the season preview. How do you think our receivers are going to match up with this, potentially good Syracuse secondary?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I think there's a chance for a storyline to come from this, and I think it's either Fran Brown is elite when it comes to being able to recruit defensive backs and coach them, and they kind of shut down our young receivers, or we could be leaving saying, welcome to college football, freshman,
Yeah.
this 4-star freshman and the transfer who I don't think really touched the field last year for Georgia. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there for them to break out. I think their safeties are a bit more experienced, but I don't think they're also necessarily, highly touted. So I'd be curious to see how much we can attack like the middle of the field too. Um, but I think it's a big opportunity, especially for a guy like Mike Matthews, where in terms of what you were coming out of high school, you're going to be the best guy on the field technically, right? Like these guys shouldn't be able to match up against you. So go prove it. So I think it could be a huge opportunity and could be Mike Matthews coming out party. We've seen coming out parties for Tennessee receivers in opening games against ACC opponents multiple times. Marquez
Or
Callaway, CPAT. I
CPAT.
mean, like that's the notable one, but Marquez had a really good game against
Yep.
Georgia Tech.
Yep.
So it could be an opportunity for even Brazel to kind of, do what Thornton did kind of last year. But I think I do like on paper, I feel good about it because at the very least, just looking at what we know, which is what they were as recruits, they match up at minimum with them. And Mike Matthews should technically be the best guy on the field.
He should. I mean, if you look at what he was coming out of high school, and again, we talked about in limited opportunities last year, he was actually pretty good. So I am interested to see that. A couple questions for you. Boo is apparently playing. Okay, Boo is playing. Do you think there is any chance that we see him on offense?
I'm leaning no, and my main reason is something I think we touched on the Sunday show a little bit, and that's just because he got to camp late, he got to practice late. I'm suspecting there wasn't enough time to work that in, and they didn't want to prioritize it, right? Because there was still a little section there, a week or so, where he was kind of off on his own still. So I would be surprised. I wouldn't wouldn't be completely shocked, but I would be surprised just because they would have had to make it a priority, basically, right? Because like the focus probably was get him ready because of the fact that we'll touch on it when we go to the defense, but like with McCoy's health, the focus had to be making sure he's ready to go in there and start in the slot. So I'd be a little surprised if he got a snap on offense, to be honest.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I am interested to see if he does play offense at all, and what the capacity is going to be. But I think it has to do with the fact that he missed most of camp, and he's not going to be able to actually learn the offense. Right? He has to actually learn the offensive side of the ball, so he hasn't been given that opportunity. Last thing we'll discuss with the offense, because I think this is what people want to know. How do you think Joey Aguilar is going to look in his first start with Tennessee?
I expect some explosive plays. I do. I expect some moments where looking at this defense, I feel like there's no reason not to because, one of the things we did give Nico a little bit of credit for is that at times the offensive line did let him down. He also made that worse. But with looking at this defensive line and how much the offensive line is getting hyped up right now, I suspect that they should come out of the gate pretty strong. And because of that, he's going to have some time to sit back there and sling that thing. And like you mentioned with his App State tape, like he will go through his progression. So if he has time to throw, I think he's going to find a guy open, or at least a guy he thinks he can get it to. So I expect a handful of explosive plays where we're like immediately thinking, wow, that's what we were missing last year. There may also be a terrible pick in there somewhere where a ball goes straight to a safety or something. But I think the positive will outweigh the negative, and I think we're going to leave saying, Aguilar has confidence and is willing to throw the ball downfield and give his guys a chance. I think with the secondary, the inexperience they have at corner, I hope, for one, this scheme can take advantage of that and make it a little easy for Aguilar as well, because we've seen that against experienced defenses, right? When Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt were just cooking Alabama's secondary, we've seen that happen. So I think there's a chance that the scheme helps and gives Aguilar some layups that I think he'll hit that Nico didn't last year, that we saw in that low light reel of just missed opportunities.
Yeah, I tend to agree, man. So in part of the research I did, I found that apparently during camp, Syracuse was getting beat over the top a lot on defense just against their own players. That seems extremely notable considering the fact that Heupel has shown time and time again that he's been able to scheme guys open down the field. And you just laid it out, man. Aguilar will hit these throws. He will. He did it at App State. I fully expect this part of our offense to come back this year, which is the deep ball. I fully expect that, which means it could be fireworks against Syracuse and, like you said, this inexperienced secondary. So going to be fascinated to see that, man. Any last thoughts on the offense or anyone you're looking at, any matchups or anything like that?
Yeah, we haven't touched on the run game a ton. I think that this is an interesting matchup. When we talk about their offense a bit more, it'll kind of go in, but they love to throw the ball, right? Like we'll touch on more in a second, but they love to throw the ball. Our offense was a bit more run heavy last year. I'm very curious to see what that looks like this year, because you and I were just talking about that too. I think there's going to be a bit more balance, because I think Heupel may have more trust in Aguilar than he did in Nico. The offensive line may have more trust in them this year than they did last year. So I think seeing a more balanced attack is probably in the game plan. But our ability to run the ball may give us the ability to just control this game, where we can pound the rock against this defensive front that doesn't look great, and kind of control the game. But their offense is set up to be able to manage that as well. So it's an interesting matchup in that aspect. But I think being able to run the ball, control the tempo of the game is something that I think we'll probably be able to do. But I am very curious to see what the game plan is, because Heupel's also had numerous games where we're just going to throw the ball over and over again, or games where he's like, I don't want my quarterback throwing. So I'm very curious to see what he comes out with for this matchup.
I agree. Also, I'm curious to see how different the offense looks. If you look at the end of last year, we are starting to use a lot more zone reads and options with the quarterback. I expect less of that with Aguilar, just because he doesn't have the athleticism that Nico has. But I'm curious to see how the offense evolves. Like, are we going to see more action from Miles Kitselman in the tight end room, Ethan Davis, those guys? It's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, man, that's the offensive matchup. I think it's the biggest question mark, right? I think it's the biggest question mark of this game, just because we haven't seen this offense perform yet. So I am curious to see how they do look against Syracuse. But let's go ahead and move on to the defense, where I feel much more confident. I think overall, the season-wise, I feel good about the offense. But game one, it could always look kind of rough again with that lack of continuity. But the defense, I feel pretty good about the defense going up against the Syracuse offense. How are you feeling about this matchup?
Yeah, I agree, man. We were just talking about that too. Like, their offensive line is in a similar boat as ours, right? Like, they have not played a game together yet. So they have inexperience there, which we can take advantage of, because that is one of the areas we feel confident, right? Our secondary, but specifically our defensive line, man. We know Gardner's got them ready. We are going to be coming at that offensive line that, it's an interesting group of a bunch of like junior and senior transfers. Who've kind of gone on journeys. Like, there's a guy that I think played at Florida State and Alabama, but never played a ton. So that's kind of the matchup I'm looking at. It's the cliche thing, right? Is to focus on the trenches. But this is also week one, so that's kind of where you find out what you're made of. So I feel pretty good about our defensive line going up against that inexperienced group up front and being able to control the game there.
I agree with that overall. We'll get into more of the specifics of that in a second. I am going to catch up on the chat real quick. JT Money is asking, which receiver do you predict is going to shine on Saturday? That's an interesting question. I think everyone's going to go to Mike Matthews just because he's listed as that X, and we kind of expect that out of the former 5-star. Do you have another name that you're watching or a different prediction than Mike Matthews, Dakota?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with my breakout player from the season preview, and I'm going to go Braylon Staley. I expect him. I was impressed by what he did when he got the ball in his hands on the few chances he had last year, of being able to make some plays after the catch. So I think both of them have the opportunity to shine. But I have my eye on Staley. I think the guy's working, and I liked what I saw last year from him too.
Yeah, I like that prediction. Also, I'll just shout out Chris Brazel because we discussed on that season preview how year 2 in the system, some of these receivers Heupel have taken massive jumps. We saw that from Dante Thornton a year ago. This is Chris Brazel's second year in the system, so maybe he can take that huge jump this year. But appreciate you chatting, JT Money, and appreciate everyone chatting. We welcome all chatters. We'll read out the chats if y'all want to get in the discussion with us. We definitely appreciate that. But yeah, getting back to this defensive matchup, I agree with you. I think, listen, we talked on the season preview how the defensive line for this team, this Tennessee Vols team, is the strength of the team, man. It's extremely deep. Some guys that are I think due for breakouts. I mean, Josh Heupel was asked this week in a one-on-one interview, which he usually gives Coach Peak answers. This one-on-one interview, he was a little bit more open, which I appreciated. But he was asked for a breakout player. His first name he said was Jordan Ross. That's pretty notable. I mean, 5-star elite prospect last year. He was top 10 in his class. And he didn't play much last year. He made some special teams play. He had that block, I believe, blocked punting on the year. So he was playing on special teams. He paid his dues on special teams. It seems like this year he's going to be inserted in the defensive lineup. And since we don't have the depth chart, Dakota, Heupel has not given us a depth chart, he could be starting at edge. We have really no idea. I mean, that wouldn't shock me if Jordan Ross is starting at edge. And he's one of the guys on this defensive line that I could see tearing up this Syracuse offensive line, man. A lot like our O-line, essentially no playing time together outside of practice. They're only bringing back one offensive line starter. And I was telling you, one starter they're bringing back, Demetri Weatherspoon. I did a little bit of research on him. Against good pass rushers, man, he gets destroyed. Okay, last year against Boston College, against Donovan Ezeraku, he had 22 pass rush snaps and a 0 pass blocking grade from PFF. I mean, that's unheard of, dude. I've literally never seen someone get a 0 grade. So if Jordan Ross can break out and become an elite edge rusher, he could eat this dude's lunch on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, does that mean he didn't touch him? Like, did Ezeraku just teleport? Like, he just didn't even get contact with him. It's so bad. And context from it, like, that guy got drafted in the second round, was like a first round player, but man, we have talent on our defensive line. So
correct.
Yeah, our lads is probably the worst for Tennessee because we have no idea what Heupel's doing.
Yeah,
because they list him as like third string, and over here Heupel's hyping him up. So But yeah, I think there's a solid opportunity for both Josephs and Ross to just take advantage of that guy. And then the other guy is a transfer redshirt freshman. So their two tackles are a guy who struggled against good competition and a freshman.
who essentially got no playing time last year, by the way.
Yeah. So that makes me licks my chops a little bit. You know, I'm like, all right, these edge rushers, if we want to find out if they could break out and have like a JPJ type breakout and become a star on the edge, these tackles are how you do it.
Yeah, I agree, man. I mean, this is why I'm pretty confident in this defensive matchup. We do just to break the fourth wall a little bit. We do a little prediction group chat or whatever where we predict college games. And I had my score prediction in there for this game. I think I'm going to change it based on this
I
defensive
think so
matchup,
too.
man. Like it just looks like a good matchup on paper. Our defensive line, especially against that offensive line, looks like a really, really good matchup. And here's the thing with like pass rushers. You don't need experience as a pass rusher. It's a very simple position. And Jordan Ross, we just didn't get a look at him last year. So like he could easily come into this game and just
Yeah,
dominate this game. And you mentioned Joseph's. I mean, he was a phenomenal player last year. I expect him to be good this year. Tyree West, the list of names
my
goes on
boy.
and on. Exactly. Your boy Tyree West. Yeah, man, I think it looks good. And then I'm also looking at our secondary against these wide receivers. How are you feeling about this matchup? Because again, to me, on paper, it looks like a matchup that favors us.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So they like to sling it. For those that don't know, Syracuse led the country last year in passing yards per game. So, and they were like 120th in rushing because they don't run the ball. Um, but they obviously lost Kyle McCord. They lost Jackson Meeks, who was their top wide receiver last year. So, and their second leading receiver actually, their tight end. So they're not returning a ton of their production. They obviously have the new quarterback coming in, Steve Angeli from Notre Dame. Didn't play a ton there. Kind of sat behind Sam Hartman when he transferred in, and then sat behind Riley Leonard when he transferred in. So he never really was able to. And now he ends up at Syracuse. So, he's an interesting guy. Statistically looking, he has 10 touchdowns and 1 pick, which looks good on paper, but it's, garbage time mostly when he got the opportunity to play. So yeah, I feel pretty good about it because this is a guy that couldn't win a starting job against some transfers, and the receivers are inexperienced and not great on paper. They do have a very intriguing guy of Jonte Cook. When we were looking at Syracuse's depth chart, the name stood out a ton to me. Now it's because former 5-star Texas wide receiver Jonte Cook, who was dismissed from the team in November, went to Washington, got dismissed from them in January, and now ends up at Syracuse. So can he keep his head on straight enough to play? We don't know. He's got the talent, so that's probably the wild card in this because the guy's clearly talented. But does he care about playing football? Apparently,
Yeah,
is the question.
yeah. Is he a good enough guy to want to play football?
To play, yeah.
I'm gonna catch up on the chat here real quick. Jace has joined us again. I appreciate Jace joining us again. Ohio State fan, but I think he declared the Vols his second team. He says, "What's up, fellas? What's up, Jace?" Vols by 9. That's not a terrible prediction. That's right around the spread. And then Bender Strings is also joining us again. Really appreciate you joining us again, Bender Strings. Bender is predicting 27-10 type game. I just think it's going to take a game or 4 to truly start clicking on offense. Yeah, if you go back and watch our offensive discussion, that was kind of part of our discussion as well. It's going to take some time for this offense to start clicking. And he's a fence post, not mobile at all. Yeah, that's true. I think they are kind of losing that element of their offense compared to last year. I think Steve is less mobile than Kyle McCord, and he's less. I just don't think he's as good as a player either.
Right.
Even though we haven't seen him play much. He only has 91 dropbacks on his career, which is, not a ton at all. Like you said, it was a lot of garbage time at Notre Dame. One thing I found in my research that was interesting, Dakota, no turnover-worthy plays from PFF, which turnover-worthy play, for those that don't know, is basically any pass that's interceptable, that they've deemed interceptable, that's on the quarterback, not on the receiver, or it's not a tipped ball or anything like that. It's on the quarterback. Or a fumble, a bad fumble by the quarterback. That's also constitutes a turnover-worthy play. He has no turnover-worthy plays, so he takes care of the ball. However, Dakota, what was very interesting, his pressure to sack percentage is terrible. He a lot of his pressures turn into sacks, which again, looking at the matchup on paper, that looks like barbecue chicken, brother. Okay, the most dropbacks he had a year ago against Purdue, he was pressured on 4 of his dropbacks, and 3 of those became sacks. Which, for those that don't know, a lot of that's on the quarterback, right, Dakota? A lot of the quarterback is responsible for a lot of those pressures becoming sacks by holding onto the ball too long, and that kind of goes to Bender Strings' point in the chat. He's a kind of a fence post in the pocket, so that seems interesting when you consider this defensive line to offensive line matchup.
Yeah, and we gotta lean into the hot topics right of today, which is Shadur out in the world, but it's comparable to him, right? Like a lot of the
Yes.
things he got knocked for is he just takes sacks that are horrible. And there was a really interesting NFL stat that I heard yesterday that was like drives where a sack happened, only like 8% of them result in a touchdown. So it's interesting how undervalued I think sacks can be.
Yes.
And that percentage is really bad because that is pretty much entirely on the quarterback at that part. Like the pressure, giving up a pressure is on the offensive lineman, but it turning into sacks typically is solely on the quarterback for not getting rid of the ball or moving in the pocket to Bender String's point, being able to slip out and continue the play. So I think we one of the things we were talking about before we went live is what Tim Banks's game plan is going to be. And with the chance that McCoy doesn't play, right? You may have a little bit less faith in the secondary at that point. We still feel great about it, right? But you don't have your elite corner out there. I feel good enough about the secondary being able to do their job that I would say send 6, send 7 almost every play. They want to throw the ball, just get after this guy and see with the fact that he is concrete footed, like just send the house and go make his day rough.
Yeah, it's a tough philosophy thing because it's like you want to win with 4, and if you can win with 4, do it. But if we're not winning with 4 at that point, you do need to send extra guys. And because again, this guy also doesn't have a lot of playing experience either, Dakota. So you got to throw some things at him that's a little exotic, I think. Again, I'm going to catch up on the chat real quick. Appreciate you all chatting. We also have 13 viewers in here. Appreciate everyone watching. If you don't mind, to drop a like on the video if you're so inclined, and join the chat. We got the chat popping off here. So JT says, maybe I'm wrong, but I think Tennessee's going to ball out in this game, offense and defense. I hope so, man. I think the defense is going to dominate. First of all, I think the defense is going to dominate. The offense, here's the thing: the offense could put up 60, Dakota. But we just don't know. There's so many unknowns, right? Like that's the only reason we're hesitant to go one way or another on the offense, because it's just such a new group. And then JT continues and he says, I also think this year we get Georgia. Man, I would love that. Just have a gut feeling. I really hope you're right about that. Would love to beat them again. Jay says he'd take Q's plus 12.5. We'll see. I mean, listen, again, so many unknowns with both these teams. And then we're talking about Shadur's 5.3 seconds to throw the ball, Jay says, in the preseason. That's awful. That's on the quarterback. And that's one thing that I would love to do on Vol Talk, man, is kind of help people understand that not every sack is on the offensive line. In fact, you could argue most sacks aren't on the offensive line, because a lot of people, what they do, Dakota, as you know, they look at the box score and then they say, oh, man, the quarterback was sacked 6 times. The offensive line must be terrible. I think we saw this with Nico last year, man. How many times did Nico put his offensive line in a bad spot by bailing on a clean pocket? And then what happens at that point, Dakota, it can cause holding penalties because the offensive lineman doesn't know where your quarterback is. The tackle doesn't know where the quarterback is. Or B, the tackle looks like he loses a block, but it's really just because the quarterback bailed on a pocket and is now getting sacked to his right or left. So, that's a huge thing in football. And then JT says, sling it right into Hood's hands. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think we're just talking about this, man. I think, again, overall, what I'm most confident in this game and why I think it's very possible we cover the spread, Dakota, is I think this defense is going to eat on the Syracuse offense, man.
I think so too. The more I looked at it, and we were talking about our score predictions and our little friends, pick'ems, and I agree. I think I'm going to change mine here because I feel pretty confident because the thing that is the most consistent for our team, the least unknown, is our defense in general, right? I mean, we're returning a ton of starters. We're missing the JPJ and Omar Norman Lott, but we're bringing back a lot of guys. We're bringing guys who are stepping in to those roles who've been here, though, as well. Like, we're not relying on transfers coming in right now to play. Outside of Hood, if McCoy can't go. But either way, we have guys on the defensive line who've been playing rotationally, who I feel confident in. And then our linebackers are both coming back. So that is the avenue where we were the best last year.
Yeah.
And I think that could be the strong suit in this game where even if the offense, it's kind of, to Bender String's point, like even if the offense doesn't click, if our defense looks like it did last year, where we're not giving up 20 points until halfway into SEC play, then this could be a game where we give up 10, 14 and we don't score a ton, but we still cover the spread because of it.
I mean, let's not forget this defense didn't give up a touchdown until like what was it, 3.5 games into last year, something like that. I mean, we were on a record of not giving up a touchdown in so many quarters or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be the strength of the team again. I think it matches up well with Syracuse as well. And speaking to the secondary, and we keep talking about McCoy. It doesn't look like McCoy's going to play in this game. But another guy getting hype this week was Jalen McMurray. Tim Banks gave him a lot of love in his press conference. So, I mean, the secondary is kind of loaded, man. It looks loaded on paper. So, and then, I mentioned Boo's playing, so he'll be playing the nickel. Yeah, I mean, it looks like a really good matchup. We're good at what they want to do, right? They want to pass the ball. We're really good at stopping the pass, or at least we were last year, and we are on paper. So, Landon joining the chat. What do you think about Star Thomas? Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. That's another question with the offense that we didn't touch much on in this preview show, Dakota, which is who's going to be the back? Like, who's going to be the feature guy? I really think it's going to be a stable. I think we're going to see all three. I think we're going to see all three in this game. I think we're going to see all three throughout the season. But yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, the more I think about it, we won't know until the depth chart, right? Like Heupel said earlier today or yesterday about what he got asked. So
we'll find out. We won't really know. According to Heupel.
Yeah, we'll find out when whoever runs out with the start. No, that's when we'll find out. But no, and Heupel's had a consistency thing of doing that in the past, right? Like even back when Samson was starting to break out with Wright and Jabari Small and Wright were together, kind of a drive on, drive off type thing. And I think with them getting their legs under them, I could see them doing that to start this game, where we see Deshaun Bishop probably is my gut leans Deshaun Bishop being out there for the first possession, but I think you could see it where the first three possession are three different running backs. To be honest, I think I could see that. And who has the hot hand will keep that guy out there a bit more. But I think I do agree too. We will see all three of them in this game. I think for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's kind of how they play it. I mean, that's the fun thing about this Saturday, dude. The most unknowns is this first Saturday because we really don't know what the depth chart's going to look like. Bender Extremes continues the conversation, says, when does Jermod when Jermod does come back, does Hood sit or do they move him to the other side of the field? That's an interesting question. And then they said they think they should both be on the field at the same time. Yeah, Colton Hood's looked really good in camp. I'm curious to see how he plays in the game. Because obviously he's gonna be playing in the Syracuse game. So I think it depends on his performance more than anything, but it's really good to have depth at this position, man. You need four good cornerbacks, in my opinion, on a team. So, I mean, what do you feel about that? What do you feel about Colton Hood?
Yeah, and I think it's also dependent on just how much Ricky takes a step forward, right? Because like if Ricky's also better this year, it's kind of hard to take him off the field. And I do like Colton a lot because I think he's tough to evaluate because I just don't know how much I trust the defense he was in Colorado and the ability to develop him and whatnot. Like his coverage grade with PFF wasn't great, but it wasn't bad either. So it's like I don't want to read into that too much given the defense he was in. But I think a lot of it is really on Ricky because if Ricky's playing well, I think it's hard to take him off the field when it feels like he's earned that starting job. And to your point, the depth is great because we don't know with McCoy's situation, like how much we may need to lean on Hood season anyway. Because we were talking about it, bubble wrap McCoy for the games we need him, man. Like
that's how I feel too, man.
Yeah, and Ricky's a junior, so he'll probably be back next year. And Colton's a redshirt sophomore now. If McCoy just plays close to what he did last year, he's getting drafted.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so like, and then it's Colton's opportunity to step in and take that job next year. So I think it's interesting. I think I want to see them, to your point though, I want to see them on the field. I've seen Ricky play, but he may also take a step forward this year. But I want to see Colton Hood actually out there with the defense.
Agreed. And I think ultimately they're all going to be very important for this year, right? While Jermod's out or when Jermod's back for depth purposes. So, yeah, I think that's it for the defense. Do you have any other notes on the defense, Dakota? Any other matchups you're looking for?
No, again, I mean, the one thing, and maybe it changes with the quarterback. I'm assuming this is offensive coordinator driven for Syracuse, but just don't expect them to run the ball much, if at all. Like they just don't do it. So, I mean, they're going to show up on 1st and 10 and just start throwing it. So, because of that, it can be an exciting game, but it also, it means the game could fall apart pretty quickly for them. And I think that's something worth
Yeah,
noting. Is a team that does
that's
that. If you go 3 and out throwing the ball, the clock has stopped, and if our offense starts to click, it could get ugly pretty quickly. But it also means they're not really out of it because they have that. But it could spiral if their offense is struggling against our defense.
we just never know because it's the first game of the season. Like we've convinced ourselves of all these things. We have to go
Yeah.
see it now. But it does feel like one of those games where if we came out of this game with 7 sacks, team sacks, I wouldn't
Yeah.
be like shocked by that, dude. I just wouldn't be shocked by that. But let's move on here. Let's go on to the fun part of the show, I would say. The predictions. So we're gonna predict the spread because I think we're both gonna take Tennessee to win this game. And let's just give our exact score predictions as well.
Mhm.
So what is your exact score prediction for Tennessee versus Syracuse in Atlanta this Saturday?
So I think, yeah, I'm flipping back and forth, and now I think I'm going to have us cover. And I'm going to go 31-17.
Okay.
And my logic will be the defense plays pretty well, kind of shutting them down for the most part. But the offense is we have some explosive plays, but there's still the learning curve, right? And I think we just run the ball pretty well and control the tempo of the game, so the scoring opportunities aren't as high. But I basically put my faith in the defense to just shut them down, and maybe they score a late time touchdown too. But I'm getting cocky a little bit.
I like it, man. I like it. Man, again, I'm looking at the matchups and to be honest, if I'm just being real, when I initially saw this line come out, I was like, it felt high because this is a 10-win team from last year in Syracuse. They beat Miami to basically eliminate Miami from the playoffs. But the thing is, this Syracuse team is pretty much completely different. I think they lost their strengths of their team. You could argue Tennessee lost the bad part of their team outside of D. Samp and James Pierce and Norman Lott. But and yeah, we're bringing back pretty much most of our defense, and it feels like a really good defensive matchup. And so that's why I'm going to go 30-10 is my official prediction.
I like it.
And honestly, dude, I almost thought about picking lower just as far point total for Syracuse because I just think our defense is going to dominate in this game. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much it for the show, guys. If y'all want to drop your predictions in the chat real quick before we get off here, appreciate everyone watching. Again, we have 15 concurrent viewers right now. Really appreciate that. Please, if you don't mind, before we get off here, to like and subscribe to the channel. We're going to be doing this every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. You may see more of Dakota because Blake has to get up real early to do these. So we'll see how many of these he's actually able to get up and do. We'll also be doing game reviews on Sundays at 11:30 a.m. So that'll be fun. And Blake should be back for this upcoming Syracuse review at 11:30. And I'm hoping I'm bringing you all good news. That's what we're hoping. At least a W and hopefully a non-stressful W, Dakota. That's what I'm hoping for more than anything, man.
That's a good thing. Yeah, that last year was incredibly stressful, more than it should have been, man. Like that summarized pretty much every game was like that meme of like, oh, I can't wait to sit down and watch my favorite team. And then it's like, I want to die for 2.5 hours. And then it's like, oh, yeah, we won. Like that was the essence of last year.
As long as we don't go scoreless in the first half like it felt like we did most of last year, I'll feel good about that. Jason in the chat says 33-24 Vols. I like that prediction. Anyone else wants to drop their prediction real quick? But yeah, that's pretty much it. These preview shows are going to be on the shorter side. If you haven't caught it already, we have a 3-hour season preview. If you're dying to listen to more Vol Talk, go check out the 3-hour season preview. Real quick, Landon in the chat, what do you think about the wide receiver depth? Travis Smith, Jackson, Jefferson. Yeah, it's interesting. What I'm looking for with that, Landon, is who plays, who's actually getting in the game, like because that will tell us, okay, who impressed in camp and who are they most hopeful about? Because all three of those guys are freshmen, two of which are true freshmen. So I'm very curious to see like what of those receivers actually play. What do you think about that, Dakota?
Yeah, it's same because it's like we know the top three, right? It's Matthews, it's Staley, and it's Brazel. So it is who is the next man up to get some of that playing time. I personally have been a big fan of Travis Smith Jr. The stuff I've seen, like watching some of his high school stuff when we were recruiting him, he's pretty exciting to watch. And then Jefferson's interesting coming over from Alabama. It's always cool to steal something from them, and if he could break out, that's always fun. Like Alvin coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's you don't, and I think that's the thing. It's going to be interesting when you all do like the preview show for next week because it's going to be completely different.
Much more. We'll know.
You're going to know so much to be like, here are the stuff we do now know and what we can talk about because like those types of questions, we'll find out some of it. Because obviously they rotate a good bit, but yeah, I'm very curious to see which one of those three guys is on first. Yeah. And based on a lot of what we've heard and stuff, I get the sense it's going to be Amari. But we'll see.
He's also looked good in camp as well. Landon's predicting 31-17. I like that prediction. I think that was Dakota's exact prediction. Yeah. So that, Dakota agrees with you on that. Rick says, catch you next time, fellas. Spent the night at the ballpark with the grandkids. Totally understand that, Rick. Appreciate you dropping into the chat. He says 27-10 Vols. Agrees with Bender of Shrinks, who's also predicting 27-10. And I'm kind of with y'all, right? I don't think... Yeah. And again, this is just a prediction. I hope I'm wrong. I don't think the offense is going to just click immediately. I just don't think they will, but I think the defense is going to dominate. I do. Bender says the offense sputters early, but we wear them down over the course of the game with our run game, which is how we won last year. That's how we won games last year. And Boo houses one on a punt return. If Boo houses a punt return, all of a sudden, all the off-season stuff, it's amnesia, dude. It's literally right out of our minds. We completely forget immediately, right?
Get those breaks on special teams, man. No, we all is forgiven. You are the savior again. That would just be, and those are always some of the most exciting plays too, dude. Special teams touchdowns, like when we had Evan Berry back there returning kicks. C-Pat was special with that too.
It's huge, man.
Yeah, you love to see those. So that'd be exciting. If he doesn't get in on offense, still make plays in special teams if he's still out there returning.
Yeah. And Bender Blake would appreciate your special teams shout out because he likes to give me crap for not giving special teams enough love.
We didn't break down the special teams.
Yeah.
What's the matchup look like there?
Exactly. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode, y'all. Appreciate everyone watching. Any final thoughts on the preview, Dakota?
No, I'm excited. I'm ready to watch this team play, find out what we are, find out if I'm going to be even more optimistic this season or if I'm going to fall into my deep, dark hole. Even if we win and I'm just sad with how it looked, you never know. But I'm just excited, man. I'm ready for football. We got a little taste of it this weekend. So in general, really just excited for football. And I'll shout out Jace, I agree that Ohio State Texas game is going to be is on at the same time, but we'll have multiple TVs set up where we're watching from, so we'll be watching it as well.
It's a fun week one, man. This week one is going to be electric. It's a stacked slate, and I'm ready for it. And I'm kind of there with Jace. I'm just hoping for a 1-0 start. That's the biggest thing. Just get the W. So. But anyway, y'all, appreciate y'all watching. We will be live at 11:30 on Sunday, the day after the Syracuse game, reviewing the game, going over all of it. Those shows will probably be a much longer once we actually see the game and have much more to talk about.
And if you win or not with Blake.
Yeah, true. If we don't win, Blake might not even show up. I might have to get Dakota to get back on the show. Blake does not like talking about losses. So, but until next time, y'all, GBO.